All right.
We're here.
Episode 45.
Yeah. It's the day after the election.
Yeah. Very somber feeling outside.
Yeah.
Doesn't bother me, though. That's not what...
Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like this whole country gets weird around those times regardless. I don't know if somber is the right word.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I don't know. I know the best part of my day so far was when I was outside this morning and I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
And I was just walking around, just enjoying life.
Yeah.
Not that I, like we were talked about before, this isn't a political show, and, neither one of us is very invested in this stuff, so.
Yeah. I don't know, but I don't know if I have any other advice other than, to try to tune it out as much as you can, you know?
Yeah, if that's your problem.
I'm not.
Or if you like it, then lean to it. Who cares?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know? I think what's important is to watch. I think it's important to just I guess it's the same thing as using your phone for productive purposes versus doom scrolling, you know?
Yeah.
It's are you reading the same fact 50 times or yeah.
We'll probably cut this out.
No, right? That's not
I don't know.
Right? Some people just obsess over it.
Yeah, that's not my cup of tea, so.
Me neither.
For both of us, it's a nice day. We got the studio set up.
It's a beautiful day out there. It doesn't feel like November.
No, it's not. This is the third episode in a row where we're both wearing shorts.
Yeah.
And it's
been the nicest part of the week every time last week it was really nice, and then it was cold over the weekend, and then it's nice again.
Yep. Man, global warming.
I thought we weren't going to get political.
Yeah. That's crazy, though, if you think about it. Well, I bet you the average for today is probably higher by at least 20 degrees than it has been in the past. Because that's been the trend. I look at that, when I'm getting ready in the morning, when I'm going for a run sometimes, because it comes up on the weather app.
Yeah.
It'll tell you, what the normal average is. And,
plus 17 degrees.
Yeah, on these hot days in November, it's been, plus 20, plus 21.
Mm-hmm.
That's a crazy thing to think about.
Yeah.
I was saying the other day... Remember when we were kids and when it would snow, it would start to snow at the end of November, the beginning of December, and then you really wouldn't see the grass again until March.
Yeah, I definitely remember some winters like that.
Yeah.
But not recently.
Yeah, no, it's been a long time. But you want to talk about global?
my snow shoveling skills have declined steadily over the years.
Yeah, I mean...
I was ranked top in my class as a young man. I've since died off just because if you really want to be passionate about it, you gotta live somewhere like Canada, you know. You really want to be at the top. Just not getting that here. It's too unpredictable.
What about Buffalo?
Yeah, but
isn't that crazy?
That's
Buffalo
basically
is still
Canada.
in New York, and
it's basically Canada.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Still in New York though, and they'll get mad snow all winter.
Yeah, but we just get I feel for us, it's always is it going to be a big storm or not? For them, they just know, you know, and they're just used to it. I think that's what it's all about, right?
Yeah.
It's not are you prepared for it? It's what are you used to?
Mm-hmm. I don't think anybody's used to us talking about the weather.
Wow, it sure is sunny outside. Considering that it's November 7th.
I guess we actually have talked about the weather, though, in the last couple episodes.
Yeah.
Because even when we were outside 2 weeks ago on the deck, we were
you
guys are going to be, wondering why we're outside when this episode comes out, at the end of November.
But that also easily could have been, today.
Yeah.
Except there's less leaves.
Yeah.
I feel the resistance.
Yeah,
do you feel it?
I feel the resistance.
Do you feel it because we're not talking about shit?
Yeah.
That's okay, though.
That's all right.
Sometimes it takes us a little bit to warm up. I think that
so
might have been...
let's just talk about what we talked about.
No, but I think that may have... I think that's kind of... we say fuck it in terms of, trying to make episodes shorter for people.
Yeah.
Because I feel the only way that we ever get going on a good conversation is if we go for a certain amount of time.
Yeah, I feel that too. It takes us a little bit to get into it. And you kind of have to identify what we're resisting talking about. I feel at the beginning. It's going to be, it's always just
we also really didn't, outside of the election itself, didn't really like, how are you feeling lately? What's going on with you? You know?
Yeah. I mean, I guess we could start there.
Yeah, exactly.
I
Because I think that everybody filters it through that at this time.
Yeah. So last week when we recorded, I texted you. I texted you at the end of the week because I had a really rough week.
Mm-hmm.
I just like.
Do you feel like that's what you're resisting talking about?
No, I feel like I was resisting us talking about trying to like talk about how we feel about politics.
Politics? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Not that this is going to be a political episode, but like
No.
we talk about that.
I just feel like I personally don't feel like educated on it enough.
Yeah.
To like sit up here and talk about that.
Neither do I. I can just talk about how I navigate that experience.
And I don't think that politics is the way to go about that.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
I don't know. It feels odd. But there's always like something in the air.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, last week I was pretty down. It was a lower week. This week I feel a lot better. Sunday I had a great day. I think that long run that I went on was like super helpful for me. I had a lot of time by myself, and you know, I did something that I enjoy doing, and it doesn't have to be because the marathon was on. And I was like, let me go prove to myself that I could run a marathon. Like I was just like, let me go for a long run. It felt like a good day to do it, and I got to clear some stuff out that's been on my mind, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Got to think about some things, and that time alone, like I always enjoy, like being by myself, especially on those long runs. And at the end of it, it's very, very rewarding. And then like me and Des had like a very nice night. Like we went to Hudson, we went to dinner. Maker was like awesome. Never been there before, but it was really nice. And I don't know. This week, I'm just kind of trying to keep that balance of going out and like taking, I don't know what I'm getting at.
Is there anything in particular that was bothering you that you want to share?
No, like I don't really know what was bothering me, to be honest. Like I just like have those feelings sometimes where I'm not like.
Yeah, and like, do you find that you get more frustrated by the fact that you don't know like exactly what it is that's frustrating you?
No, I think right now I'm just trying to figure out, like, I'm trying to examine that feeling, but I'm like, was struggling to remember what happened that day and, like, when I texted you, like, what was going on that day.
Mm-hmm.
That day, I, like, just woke up, and last week a couple times it happened. I would wake up and I just wouldn't feel myself. Like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, when you feel, like, I have this feeling when I wake up that I know like I'm gonna just like prevail for the day. Like most of the time I wake up with that feeling, and like by the time I get done with my morning routine, I'm like, wow, like you're thriving today. You know what I mean? Like
you're
it's
on the
a
right
good
track,
day.
whatever.
And I just like woke up without that, and then like to try and chase that feeling all day long. Like why am I not in that mindset? I think beat me up, and then I like was self-sabotaging a lot, like just in my head, like spiraling. And then it was hard for me to communicate with Desiree what was going on because like I couldn't really like hone in, and I just felt like I was off. And then I don't know, everything kind of led up to Sunday, and then when I went for that run, like I think I cleared out a lot of that space. Sometimes I feel like I hold shit in my body, and like the only way to get it out is like through like real physical exertion. Like I feel like what I do in the morning right now, like running as much as I do and then working out, like it keeps me in shape. It's become like the normal for me. Like my body's baselined at that, and then sometimes when there's like, I don't know, running's my release, and sometimes I feel like I need to go on a really long one to get stuff that's been like pent up in me out. I was also talking about getting like Reiki reading. Because like I feel like I have some energy that's stored in my body from like stuff that we've talked about, like that I've vocalized, but it's still stored in my body, and it's not, and like that energy will be off-putting for me sometimes. And I think that attributes to the self-sabotage, and especially like when I get in my head, I kind of spiral. So like last week was a tough week for that. And then going for that run really helped me push through that. And this week I'm like, I feel very motivated right now.
Yeah, and it's like that feeling of pushing yourself. And I think it even amplifies even more when it's like you don't want to. And I think for the most part, with a few exceptions, it's like after you do some type of physical activity, you're in a good mood. And it doesn't always break, things happen. Like it doesn't fix everything. But like if you feel stuck or you're trying to like hop out of it, I always find that like that helps me for sure. Like I was like, okay, well I did that and now let's keep going.
Yeah.
But your brain is always kind of like figuring out those ways to still like, and I think it's important to like have that awareness of where you're pushing yourself to. And I might have sent you a video about it, but it was like a thing that was talking about the most productive things that you can do at night. And they said that one of the biggest factors in getting good sleep at night was not even necessarily like physically pushing yourself. It was more of, do you feel like you did like the feeling of doing something physical is what helps you sleep at night just as much as doing that thing, because it's like you're compounding that trust.
Yeah, I definitely felt it last night. I told you I did yoga before bed. Like that 30 minutes like was solid. It was a very, very deep yin class too, and it was on Whoop. It was just like 1% cardio, 99% muscular, and it was literally just like holding poses for like 5-10 reps. It was like a very nice class.
especially before bed. That's nice.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
And sometimes like I always feel that when I'm in yoga, which is that like I don't feel like necessarily like you hold the poses for as long because you're trying to like flow through, and I get that that's kind of the point, but sometimes I just want to hold one. So it's nice to like carve that out and specifically do that.
My body definitely enjoyed it because my recovery this morning was great. So something that I'll probably start implementing more, doing it in a class or two. So how's your book going? We talk about that for a little bit.
It's good, man. I mean, sometimes it's an old book, so it doesn't necessarily relate always to like the modern aspect of today. But what I really, really have come to enjoy about it is how deep it is into like not labeling things, and that nothing is good or bad, and that it's in a way it's teaching me like patience about everything in my life, because you have this immediate feeling to like always label something as good or bad or black or white, and that this is going to help me in my day, this is not going to help me, whatever it might be. And I just find that it helps me like sit down in stillness and not have to judge like the thoughts I'm having or the things that happen today or anything that really like goes down. It helps me just like be okay with what's happening. And does it always work? No, but it's like it helps me get to that kind of place.
I think when I first started on my journey, paradoxical thinking kind of opened me up a little bit, but a lot of it went over my head. And then that book, and especially the Wayne Dyer interpretation, have definitely opened me up to it. But like I texted you too, that I had read like a couple AlanWatts books to this point, but like I read them backwards. So like his ideas were very, very deep, and those were the ones that I was reading, and I hadn't really read what got him to that point.
Yeah.
And then I started reading this, and I cut this out, like I clipped this part, because this was I read this and I was just like, damn, okay. The chapter is called On Being Awake too. But he's talking and he goes, but as a matter of fact, you cannot compare this present experience with a past experience. You can only compare it with a memory of the past, which is a part of the present experience. When you see clearly that memory is a form of a present experience, it will be obvious that trying to separate yourself from this experience is as impossible as trying to make your teeth bite themselves. There is simply experience. There is not something or someone experiencing experience. You do not feel feelings, think thoughts, or sense sensations any more than you hear hearing, see sight, or smell smelling. I feel fine means that a fine feeling is present. It does not mean that there is one thing called I and another separate thing called a feeling. So that when you bring them together, this I feels the fine feeling. There are no feelings but present feelings, and whatever is feeling is present is I. No one ever found an I apart from some present experience or some experience apart from an I, which is only to say that those two things are the same thing.
A lot of I's in there.
Well, because what he's doing is he's separating
Mm-hmm.
because there's the I and the self. And it's kind of opening you up to just being to that train of thought.
Mm-hmm.
Which,
that like the only way that. Yeah, I was listening to Sadhguru on Theo Von's podcast, and he was saying how it was like something to the effect of that, like, what is yesterday? But something that exists in right now in your mind that you're just kind of like grasping onto. And it's not to say that like you can't have fond memories, but you also can't like hold everything that's ever happened to you over your own head.
Yeah.
And then you're bringing that. It's not going to do you any good to bring that negativity to the present moment.
I think the way that I interpreted it was that for me, I think what I'm trying to work the most on is my reactions to things. And so for me, hearing that and reading that, to me, made me think that in those moments of frustration, like, there's no sense in being like, I'm frustrated and I'm frustrated by this, and this is why I am frustration. Like, frustration is what it is right now. And that's it. And just trying to embrace that, and so I can feel it, so I can make myself aware of that feeling. This way, when it comes up, it's easier to just be like, take a breath and let it pass. And I'm trying to train myself on those things right now. So that like really opened me up. But like that kind of thinking is what led to those books being so like, they were like over my head at the beginning. Like when I read them, like I had read AlanWatts books before this, and I had listened to AlanWatts speeches before this, but like reading this book was kind of like, he wrote this in the 50s too, like, which is crazy to think because people were not thinking that sort of way.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely like a revolution coming in the 60s, but he was ahead of his time. Like,
yeah. He finished off, this was like the last part of it, that while the notion that I am separate from my experience remains, there is confusion and turmoil. Because of this, there is neither awareness nor understanding of experience, and thus no real possibility of assimilating it. To understand this moment, I must not try to be divided from it. I must be aware of it with my whole being. This, like refraining from holding my breath for 10 minutes, is not something I should do. In reality, it is the only thing I can do. Everything else is Everything else is the insanity of attempting the impossible.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm feeling really blocked right now.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
What do you think it's about?
I don't know. I feel like I'm wishing that I was thinking more internally right now. And I can't seem to get to that place where, like, I know, and I've seen it when we're editing stuff, that I get to, and I'm having a hard time getting there.
Well, it's okay. It's part of the experience.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like I had that episode that just came out this week where, like, I felt so open and I brought such good energy to it that I'm comparing myself to that now. And that I'm not bringing it like I should be. That's how I feel.
Well, this is just episode 45, man.
No, I know.
There'll be plenty more episodes.
Yeah, and it's all in my head.
Yeah. Well, I'm not saying it's all in your head. Like, This conversation may seem a little bit slower than most of ours, are not as put together as other ones, but that is life, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I feel like maybe because like the look of this is leveled up
Mm-hmm.
a lot in the last couple weeks, we're still trying to catch up to that, and we're putting pressure on ourselves to look and sound more professional because we're trying to be more professional.
You think more people are watching?
But at the same time, this is still just the very beginning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And like we shouldn't be putting this much pressure on ourselves because we're still we showed up today, and regardless of what our standards are for an episode or what we think about this, like it's happening and we're recording it, and like we did it, and next week maybe it'll be better, maybe it'll be worse. Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And,
is it good or bad?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I don't know, I feel like I get caught up in that. Did we do everything beforehand to prepare properly for what we're going to talk about?
Yeah.
And then I beat myself up about that.
Yeah.
Because it's like you get so worried about if the camera's steady and do the lights look good and do we have enough time and blah blah blah, and then you're like, oh wait, I'm supposed to like be thinking introspectively right now, to try to get myself to a place of bringing value to this podcast.
Well, you know, like we said before, it always takes a little bit to open up on some of the episodes, and that's okay because that's part of life, and it's not easy to sit down and have these conversations. Especially, we do it every week, man.
Yeah.
Every week. Not every week is going to be some detrimental change in your life that we need to come on here and be like, look at what's happening.
Exactly. Yeah. And even now, just by like identifying that that's how I was feeling and saying that, I feel better now. Like I feel more open just by saying that.
I listened to Jay Shetty the other day, and it was like one of those 30-minute episodes that he does by himself, and it was just like ways to like save yourself from doing something you regret or like saying something you regret, and like when you feel feelings to like how to sit with them for a second. And it was just like set a 90-second timer.
I listened to that one too. Yeah.
A
couple weeks ago. Yeah.
I thought that was really insightful, and that helps me now because now he said it's like 27 deep breaths, 90 seconds, and I'll just take that time,
which feels like a lifetime when you're.
Well.
No, I mean that's a good thing. That's how everything feels like magnified when you're in that state of mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think it's perfect timing because we'll reset for the camera and we're in like 5 minutes and we're hitting our stride right now. I feel like like we've definitely opened up a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's resistance.
Yeah,
I felt the resistance, like, and that's I think I don't know. Like maybe we'll keep it, maybe we won't. I don't know.
We got to get Steven Pressfield on this podcast.
Yeah, but it's like I feel that, and it's just like that feeling of instead of this being a good conversation, you want it to just be good. Or whatever that means. And then when you can't define stuff like that, then you get caught up in everything you're not doing, or you're not saying, versus just being present. Like there were definitely times throughout that where I was like wandering in my head and not being fully present, listening to what.
Yeah, like why is this guy reading a book right
now? Yeah, but I also like I think that I sometimes get too caught up in are we like referencing things too much?
Yeah, man, that's funny.
You know, and I know, and it's stupid, it's silly, but it's like I get caught up in like this thing.
You don't gotta. It's okay that happens. Yeah. It's not stupid or silly.
Yeah,
like, it is
but it's like these things are stuff that helps us get better, or however you want to define it. And like, why would there be too much of that?
Yeah, I think if it's something that's insightful for us, it's always worth sharing.
Yeah, and it brings more to the conversation. Yeah. But I think I get caught up into that thought loop of like you always have to be like saying something profound or original.
No.
And then
not everything.
You're thinking of a
moment.
But then you're like you're thinking about that versus just being present, which is where moments like that happen.
Yeah. Being in this conversation.
Yeah.
Why don't we take a couple of deep breaths, reset.
Yeah.
And then we'll keep it going.
Yeah.
You know, the power of editing is crazy, bro. Just fix it in post.
I also, I don't know, I think some part of me is thinking that because now I'm doing video and I'm doing sound, I'm doing things like that, that this has to like look better now, even though I'm like still learning how to do this. I think that's where I find the struggle.
Hit record. Hit record. Let's talk about this. Let's continue on that path.
Yeah. Is like feeling like when you make a decision to like put more effort into something, which for me in that case it's doing video production and doing more things like that and being more creative, that like then coming here I feel like this made up pressure of each time it needs to look better and get better, because now this is not just this podcast, this is like my resume. And that's, like we said, kind of putting things into a category. Mm-hmm. That it's like, this is the video that somebody's going to decide if I get a job or something.
Yeah.
You know?
I believe that that's resistance in a form for you.
Yeah.
Because this is what you like to do, you know, directing and editing, and being in that space and that field is something that you're passionate about. That's where that resistance builds up, because it's something that you should be leaning into, but resistance clearly doesn't want you to right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that it's also like knowing how natural the feeling is when the podcast is good and we're having good conversation, that I don't think it's made that way into my life as much in terms of the creativity versus this. Does that kind of add up? That like we've been doing this for a while and for a long time, that I didn't really put as much effort, or at least I tried to hold back the effort of making this look better or producing this better or whatever it was. And then now that I've like decided to put more effort into that in return to doing more stuff and like directing and stuff like that, the me who now is like more patient with myself and stuff like that still identifies with that older version of myself in that area in terms of like being creative, that like that perfectionist thing. And like I've done a lot to work on that in my personal life, but I also think that I've put that to the side because I felt that way about what I was doing, and that like there was no room for me to learn. It was that everything had to be perfect, and that it's hard to now, after making kind of like that decision with myself, I feel like there's like two different parts of me that are fighting when we're doing this, even though when they come together and it's a good combination, that's where I want to be at. It's sometimes hard to like translate that it's okay to not be perfect into that.
Finding the balance.
I know that I said that a lot there.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's finding the balance, I think.
Yeah.
Well, it is. It's just you haven't found that balance yet, and that takes time. But it's good that you feel that resistance and that you're aware of it and you're taking the steps to continue doing this instead of just giving in. And like that's going to add up over time. Like you'll see it. I mean, if anybody's going to see the changes in this podcast, first it's going to be you when you're editing it. And and those are things that you can credit to yourself, because you do a lot of the setup and everything. Like most of this is you, you know, like other than the conversation and like doing the clips and stuff. Well, like when we sit down, like a lot of this has been stuff that you've taught me, you know, like so we are only here because of what you knew to begin.
Yeah,
and you're still learning. So
yeah, exactly. And I think I struggle with that too.
Yeah,
that it's like and that like there's always kind of gonna be, anybody who works in production knows that there's always gonna be some type of thing the day of that you weren't planning for. Even in a controlled studio environment or whatever it's gonna be, there's always gonna be something next to solve, and not like trying to avoid that. And even if it is like a mental block versus like a kind of like physical obstacle to getting this done, that all those things are going to kind of happen, and you just have to get used to it and like be okay with the fact that like this is what we can put out today, and that's okay. And this is the level of effort that I brought to that, and be okay with that. And that, like, for me, for this to look the way that I would want it to, or at least that I'm, like, dreaming it up in my head, you know, in terms of, like, the perfectionist aspect, is that, like, there would be 3 people here producing this episode for us. For it to look the way that I'm unrealistically expecting it to look.
Cool.
You know?
One day, man.
Yeah, but it's important that takes away from being present. That takes away from the conversation or whatever it is that it's not about how this looks. It's about what we're doing and what we're saying and the value that we're bringing in that type of way. Not like how good the static campaign looks. Because I find that's something I've always struggled with, is like you go back and you look at your footage, and instead of being like okay with the fact that like I could have done this better and that better, it's like you're looking at all the stuff that you did wrong. It's like, why didn't you hold this shot for longer? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you change this setting before you did that? Why did you, you know? And that gets loud.
A lot of resistance.
That gets really loud. And then the thing that it tells you to do is to just, you'd be better off doing nothing versus putting out what is your imperfect version of this thing that you're making. And then I think that's why I've always had a hard time with like asking people to like pay me to do that kind of stuff, because if you don't feel like you're doing enough, like why would you say to somebody, give me $500 for doing this for you? And that's certainly like kind of like a silly way to go about it, but it's not an opportunistic way to go about it.
Sure, experience, man. Yeah.
But then you start to feel like, oh, I've missed out on a lot of things because I was too proud to ask or try.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm feeling pretty blocked up right now too.
All right?
Yeah.
Was it something I said?
No,
That like you're thinking along the same lines, or you don't know what to respond? We could just call this episode solving blocks on the spot.
Oh.
Yeah. Like maybe there is something in the air about we're just taking on the tension of other people who are worried about.
Dude, I mean, like, I feel energy like crazy lately, and like most of the time it's like with me and Des, right? Because like I spend a lot of time with her, so I can like feel that. But like you started talking about the resistance, and then I felt the resistance in the room, and then I feel like I honed in on it, and now I'm feeling blocked. And it's been happening to me a lot lately. I feel like I'm picking up energies differently than I have in the past, and it fucking I sit with them too long sometimes, and I'm just like stuck in them.
Yeah.
Like I've been very,
and it's like the awareness makes it harder sometimes, right?
I'm super aware of it, and that's why I like stay out of a lot of situations. Like it's like so, like I don't like going to bars because I feel the energy that's in a bar. Like the other day I went to the food hall and I felt fine on the patio, and I stepped in and I started talking to Luke, and I was like, why am I talking like this? And I backed out and I walked out, and I was like, that's better. And then I was like, we're not going back in there. But like, I don't know. I feel like I'm just like hypersensitive to that stuff lately. And then that'll get me, depending on where I go with it, what I'm thinking of it, like I'll get trapped in that for a little too long. And then it's like, I'm so present that I'm too present. I'm just like analyzing every single moment in time.
Yeah, you're like watching yourself procrastinate or whatever it is, right?
Yeah. I was just sitting over both of us, watching us.
That's how I
teeter around, like not knowing what to talk about or how to talk about feeling blocked. But like, You were like trying to describe it, but like I couldn't assimilate what you were saying just there. Like I couldn't put it to a feeling of anything until you said like maybe there is an energy around. And I was like, no, that I understand. Like I can feel that energy. Like so. Yeah, that happens sometimes.
Yeah, at one point I felt like I was watching myself watch you read from the book, and then like watching myself be irritated that like, is our podcast even interesting? Because when we have nothing interesting to say, we just look for a book to like open up to a random page of a book and be like, let's talk about this now. And like I feel like when you overanalyze anything like that, that never kind of brings out anything good.
Yeah.
Like to me it's different where it's like, okay, maybe I got into an argument and I said something I didn't mean. Like I can now sit back from that and objectively analyze that like I said something that like I didn't want to say. But then when it's like you're just like in frustration and like there's nothing like physically or like externally or just like anything like very clearly that you can see that is like causing this to happen, I think that then you're just like, well, I'm so aware. Why can't I figure it out? And then, why can't I figure it out? Why can't I just like stop and be like, oh yeah, in the prefrontal cortex right now, I'm overanalyzing the analytical aspect. Like, why can't I do that all the time? You know? Right?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And then you're just like, I'm just like I felt like the camera. I felt like I was just like watching myself.
I feel resistance a lot because so I've been running the bridge so much and I'm deathly afraid of heights. Like I really don't like being up there. But like in my head, in my mind, I'm like, one day I've done this enough. We're just going to stop being afraid up here.
Yeah.
And I feel like I kind of try and do that here too.
Yeah.
It's just like there's times where we're talking and I'm like, this is the worst podcast on the planet. We only have 8 reviews on Spotify and we're only going to have 8 reviews for the rest of the time.
I also think that what I said to you earlier has been playing in my subconscious, and that's like how I went to bed last night. Was like thinking about how the episode I just edited was. There's also something to remember, which is that like all the episodes in a way are going to be boring to me and you because we were there and had the conversation. So for us to be like, that was really interesting, would take like a really good conversation that not every week is necessarily possible. Especially to us, but whatever. Is that like I went to thinking that like this episode that I just edited was so boring compared to the one before it that tomorrow like we really need to bring it tomorrow. Like I want to get to that place, right?
Yeah, I know. I feel that pressure on myself.
And like and it's great to like revel in the fact that we had such a good episode. Like that episode was incredible. You go back and listen to that one and it's great. It literally does sound like
what we listen to.
Yeah, the things that exactly like, and then
that's what we compare it to.
But then that's a form of comparison, obviously, which like that's great. But it's also like you can't like even every podcast that I listen to that's produced by 15 people with celebrities as guests, I'll just be like, that one was kind of a dud. Yeah. So like me and you,
I feel like that
makeshift sitting here is like. Of course, like that's gonna play into it, right? Yeah. Like, of course, that like if you're consuming something that like, and it yet again plays into this as like, all right, well, if I'm always consuming, like, if I watched The Godfather Part 2 last night, then I go outside and I want to shoot a scene from my short film. Why doesn't it look like there was like like you can't possibly just like you're doing something different, and you can't just get so caught up in I guess trying to. I think that's where like kind of poor art comes from, right? Is trying to replicate somebody else versus trying to do our own thing. And I feel like most of the positive feedback that we've gotten about this podcast is the stuff that we never thought but it was the stuff that like we kind of uniquely brought without even realizing it was there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that's a struggle too when like you read books from people who are like super spiritually aware, and not only that, but they have all these achievements, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't like be inspired by that, because that's definitely where we kind of find that. But I also think that you have to step back, and you can't be your own person if you're always trying to be whoever, right? Because then you were gonna wake up one day and you're like, I wish that I kind of followed the things that lit me up versus what I thought would light somebody else up, which is kind of an empty feeling to search for anyway.
Yeah. All right.
Was that too much? Was that a lot?
Good. Yeah, like I said, I feel like it's just sometimes it's going to be like this because we do this every week. And like you said, like coming off of a week that you thought like that you put that pressure on yourself, so we just like put out a great episode, like makes it, you look at like what we're doing today and like you're like, this conversation sucks, but like it looks nice in here, and like why couldn't we bring the energy that we had from that episode to
absolutely
this? But like it takes time to mold into, and they're not all going to be like that, and I think that's the important part. It's going to be fun to clip this episode. Just being like, this will be one of those episodes where there's literally the 3 clips that we need to post for the week. There's like one for Monday, because we do episode Tuesday and Wednesday, and then
I don't know. You never know.
or it'll I mean like you kind of know. Let's put it that way. We know at this point. We've been doing this for long enough. This episode is not to the standard of like what we know, like what we want to be putting out.
Yeah.
But episode 40 was. And like that is like
41. Was it 41?
No, it's episode. Oh yeah, it was episode 41.
Whatever, yeah.
So 41. Episode 41 was like one that we felt like there's episodes along the lines. You can go back and look at them. Like that was the first episode we did with you, like at your apartment. Like we really got into it. The episode with Jose, the episode with Kilmer. They're like the guest episodes also. We haven't had somebody on the podcast in a while to break it up. It's just been a lot of us talking. And the one thing about being on top of this, like we have been, is I've seen you probably 4 times in the 7 days since the last time we've recorded, and like we do have conversations outside of this place. So like not every time we sit down are we about to have some groundbreaking conversation, you know? And realizing that you put the pressure, that kind of pressure on yourself, and being aware of it, and just being like, okay, like this can just be a regular conversation. And you know what? If it's not good, we're not going to stop. Like it's not like this is the last episode we're ever going to do. Like we're not making a this isn't the finale every time we sit down. You know, like, you know, so.
Yeah, this episode has been a journey for sure. I feel like way lighter. I feel like this like.
Yeah, because we talked about. Like I said, I think.
And there's nothing like bad or good about what we said.
Yeah, and on top of it, it's like an hour into the episode.
But that's funny that like. But sometimes you have to do episodes like this to figure that out.
It's good because next time we know, like, if we feel some sort of resistance right away, just go back to what we wanted to talk about.
And like then you start to think about like if we had just like been natural in the beginning and let it like talked about where would we have gone? Who knows? Who knows? Yeah.
It's like
we probably would have gotten a lot quicker into that flow state.
Yeah, you know.
And that's the way it is.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Well, this is episode 45, which is ironic because he was 45 and now he's 47.
Isn't it ironic?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking while I was editing the episodes that like we should get better about like wrapping up the conversation. So like
they need to be way the last. I mean,
it just needs to feel like the end. So, and that's hard, but
I don't think it's I don't think it's that hard for us. I think it's been hard the last couple episodes because of the camera and the timing. So we'll put a memory card back in and be like, okay, this is us. This is the outro, guys.
Yeah.
And we just haven't found that flow yet. I think that'll also come when we have somebody that's just switching memory cards for us.
And that just happened to be.
Yeah.
I need to get a bunch more anyway.
Yes, but it is what it is. Well, this has been Who Thought We'd Be Here, an exciting episode filled with turbulence and
resistance.
Yes,
for sure, resistance. But we got through, and if you made it to the end of this episode, be sure to comment.
Pineapples.
I was gonna say resistance, but
or do that.
Comment if you made it to the end of this episode. Comment who you voted for in your local election, not the presidential one.
Well, yeah. Our best looking episode are like bottom tier conversation episode. But
I mean, at the end, like I don't know.
You want to know my honest opinion of this? Is this episode, as soon as we sat down, felt eerily similar to episode 3, eating humble pie. Yes,
episode 3.
It's been 42 episodes since we had one that reminded me of that episode. So I'll take it.
And like when we recorded that one, we both knew it, but we weren't aware enough to be like in the episode like, this fucking sucks, dude. What are we doing? Like, what are we trying to solve right now?
Yeah. All right. Who thought we'd be here? Let's go walk the dog.
Yeah. And
Make
that's
America
the end.
healthy again.